Earlier today, Donald Trump officially won Michigan, so he is now the winner of that state. Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, all three states where Jill Stein wants a recount. Let's talk to the Green Lady herself, former Green Party presidential nominee, Dr. Jill Stein. Welcome back, Jill.
Good to be with you, Kennedy.
So what is the point of this recount push? Are you trying to change the outcome of the election?
No, and let me say, we had already announced we were going into Michigan before we knew who the winner was. It could well have been Hillary Clinton as well. This is not a partisan action here. This is on behalf of very frustrated, cynical, disappointed voters who 80%, according to the New York Times poll, said they were disgusted by the process of this election.
Yeah.
And, you know, unhappy with the candidates, unhappy with the dialogue, unhappy with the whole thing, and very unhappy with these voting machines that we saw being hacked. We saw databases being hacked. We saw state voter databases in Illinois, in Arizona, and 20 other states that were being tampered with.
Jill,
so,
you're making these claims about hacking and tampering. These are very serious claims, and there are plenty of election groups that watch for these sort of things, including the billion-dollar Clinton campaign that has said, and I'll read you a quote from Mark Elias. He says, we do so fully aware that the number of votes separating Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in the closest of states, Michigan, well exceeds the largest number, but we feel it is important on principle to ensure the campaign is legally represented. And he also says that he knows that there is no evidence of hacking in these states, especially where voting machines were not attached to the internet.
Because there is no evidence. There is no evidence until you look for it. That's the thing about hacking into our voting system.
Well, no, oftentimes there's evidence, and then you do a further investigation when you have the initial evidence.
Well, and that's what we're doing with these three states, actually.
Okay,
we're going to the three states that are most likely to show hacking because they have razor-thin margins, because they have corrupt voting machines.
There were also thin margins in Virginia and New Hampshire and even Colorado. Why not go into those states where Hillary Clinton won?
As I'm trying to tell you, it's more than one criteria. It's razor-thin margins. It's you want to have a voting system which is suspect and which is problematic from the start. In Wisconsin, they use voting machines that are illegal to use in California because they are so tamper-friendly. They are wide open. They're an invitation to tampering.
Well, California may have a different set of standards. That's the thing about states' rights and the ability for states to determine how their elections proceed, whether it's with paper ballots or electronic voting. Now, we have seen from Nate Silver and Nate Cohn and other people whose jobs it is to follow the data and the polling that it was not irregularities that account for the disparity in votes, but rather a shifting demographic and the fact that Hillary Clinton did not appropriately reach out to many of these disgruntled and oftentimes white working-class voters.
Exactly. And so that is not justification for going in. What's justification is that you saw the Democratic Party database hacked into, right? We saw private emails hacked into, and we saw the voter database hacked into in Arizona, Illinois. That's proven. This is not conjecture.
Wouldn't you agree that in order to hack into something, you have to be connected to the internet?
So I'm not talking about the election system. I'm talking about a voter database, a state database of voters. That's not what you vote on. This is like who is registered to vote.
All right,
we
so
know that there was hacking, Kennedy. We know there was hacking all around the periphery of this election, and we know that outdated, insecure, 10-year-old voting machines without security are being used all over the place.
Well, and I'm sure some of those systems were also used in states where Hillary Clinton won. Okay, Jill, I want to ask you, Jill, we don't have a lot of time, so I want to ask you.
Michigan was not a Trump state until just now, and we were going in regardless
he's been ahead this whole time. He's been ahead this whole time, and Hillary Clinton also lost a primary, as you know, to Bernie Sanders, which just goes to show you.
And we called for a recount at that time, and I excoriated Bernie Sanders for not standing up and calling for the recount.
Okay.
We would have done it, but we didn't have standing in the Democratic primary.
Jill, I want to ask you,
holding Democrats accountable.
Jill, we're going to lose your satellite soon, and I want to continue this conversation. I want to ask you, and this is really important, who have you been speaking to from Hillary Clinton's operation? Is it her campaign attorney, Mark Elias, who says that they are now on board with your recount?
So our lawyers have called the Clinton campaign, they've also called the Trump campaign, and they've called the Johnson campaign. We tried to establish contact with the Johnson campaign weeks ago. And they, you know, it's great that Hillary came up, but we are not coordinating with the Johnson campaign.
knows that you are not going to change the outcome of this election. And I have to ask you, because I've told you this, I think you are a woman of great integrity. I think you are a very interesting candidate. And I know a lot of libertarians who either did vote for you or certainly considered it. I want to ask you, is this how you want to be remembered?
So let me tell you, throughout this election, whenever the question came up, will you challenge if there's significant doubt about the reliability and the security of our vote, I have always said yes, and that didn't matter who the winner was. I've always said, I mean, Kennedy, I am convinced, and it didn't start in this election, that we have a very vulnerable, wide-open voting system. These electronic voting machines are basically a black box. They are an invitation to tampering. We've seen it over and over again. And in this election, we saw all kinds of tampering in all kinds of other things besides our voting system.
We did, but we can't
conflate them. You look for it.
I am curious that there is some collusion between your campaign and Hillary Clinton's campaign. I don't think the results are going to change. I agree with you. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. But it also depends on how you deploy it. Dr. Stein, thank you very much for your time.
The name of the game here is standing up for voters who are unhappy from the get-go. And this is just the first step
in many
of what
states,
we need to do to take back our democracy, which we don't have.
Thank you, Dr. Stein. I appreciate it.
Thank you.